Americans.
I might do the pledge when it's the meeting.
Up until then, we're whatever. All right, are we good? Are we on? I was actually all on the camera, right? That was all for the.
All right.
We didn't make it. We didn't make it to broadcast
In
yet.
theory, we are live now.
Give the people what they want. Me being a little
Missed
tipsy,
opportunity.
me being a little haggard this early in the evening. Are we ready yet?
Yes.
All right, we're live. Thank you all for coming. Tonight is the Nyack Village Board. We're having a workshop on some issues relating to a lot of them land use, but a lot of them just policy issues that we wanted to kind of go over and get a sense of priorities and how we want to handle them. That list, your memo was published, it was put online so
Yes.
people can access it. So if you want to access it, it's on the website. If you go to nyack-newyork.gov and you go to meetings, you'll find the agenda for the 7:30 meeting, but you'll also find a memo that Andy wrote with a summary of the issues that we're going to discuss tonight in that packet. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So how do you want to, do you want to start with just go down the line, or do you
Yeah.
want to start number one and go down?
Yeah, let me just summarize.
Sure.
So, thank you, Mayor and trustees, and we have our planner, Bob Galvin, here, and some good folks from the community as well. So this memo is not intended to be comprehensive or analytical. It's sort of a annotated list of policy issues that have been under discussion either within our land use technical committee or amongst the staff or amongst the board members. And so I try to consolidate a little bit and offer kind of a summary. Just note the board has taken action recently on a number of different code revisions, and they're listed at the top of the page here. Stretch code, hotel bed tax, tree removal code, working on some related to streamlining the sign code, things like that. So from time to time, the village board is going to look at legislative matters and determine if it wants to pursue amendments to our village code, whether it's zoning or some other part of the code. So the first one here is, and I think maybe should I just summarize them all quickly so we have a sense of how much we have way too much for 1 hour here, basically.
Yeah, but let's not do the summary. They're on the list. People can read
Okay.
through them and we'll just be
Okay, so just
preamble.
the first two relate to the scope of the planning board and the architectural review board, modifying that in order to reduce total applications, reduce cost, and eliminate unnecessary work. The third one is a code revision that would redefine in our zoning how veterinarians are classified. Right now, they're classified with kennels and animal hospitals, which may be an objectionable use. That probably explains why they were prohibited in days of yore. But the questions come up, why can't we have vets? Rooftop dining is on
You're
there.
going to do the summary.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Let's, I think we'll get a chance to talk about as many as we can get, but people can, I'm just saying, people can see the list if they go online to see what the stuff we don't have time to get to, but I think they're not based in order priority. So, but I think the first two, I think are fairly significant. So let's make sure we can get into
Yeah, I would
those.
say in each case, the board needs to decide if they want to hear us, have us do more research, refer it to another committee for comment, or have us sort of execute it on some way.
All right, so let's get right into, let's separate out the ARB and the planning board, because I think they're two different
Do you
issues.
mind
But
if I just
Sure.
start you with the background?
sure,
Because I did it, so now I gotta.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
This is for the ARB and planning board or both?
It's everything.
Okay,
No, that's good.
everything on those two issues or everything on
It's
everything?
everything and more.
Okay, all right.
All
All right, so yeah, this, all right.
No, this is nice. Is this it? What?
No, this is the first we've seen this.
Oh, okay.
So we can get this, all right, so, all right, so do you wanna, we can talk, we can't read while we talk, so do you want to, just as we talk about each of the issues, do you want to summarize kind of what's in the memo and give us a sense of it? All right, so give us a sense of what you're thinking with regard to ARB and what's the
ARB
issue and what's your position on it, what you think?
ARB essentially, and we've looked at ARB before for a number of years ago, but we're looking at again, reducing some of the applications that they would be looking at, and we've talked to Greg about this too, so it's not a surprise. Greg is the chair of the ARB. And essentially, if it's, you can see it in public, from a public view, a public street, then it's something that you have to review. If it's a deck, a 24-foot deck or something in the rear yard, and you can't see it from the front, then that's something that would come off. Okay.
So it would be limiting the ARB review to things that can be seen from the street, but not necessarily if it could be seen from another parcel, like the next door neighbor, that would
Right.
not count. It would just be whether it can be seen from the street level.
Essentially, it's the public view, and that's even the way you look at your viewscapes in the code. It's really the middle of the road,
Yeah,
and it's the public view. It's not
backyard.
my house and your house.
And what did the ARB, when you talked to this, we like preliminary discussions about it, what did they talk about it? He was okay?
Yeah.
I mean, it limits it limits the things that come into them that they look at and they say, oh, no one's gonna see this, so it doesn't really matter, and then they just pass on it, but it still costs people time and money to make the applications, it takes time for the ARB to review it, so that would be the idea that if they generally, is your sense that they generally, in the past, that if someone comes with an ARB application and it can't be seen from the street, it's pretty much a rubber stamp on it.
Well, I don't think anything in this village gets rubber stamped.
But it's gonna sell for.
I get your.
Yeah.
And about, I think that something like, 33% of their applications would fall into that,
Okay, so we reduced their workload by a third. If anybody just wants to jump in, this is an open discussion. If anybody has any commentary from the public, if they want to, weigh in on this, feel free to just make yourself known
and I have more detail about, I mean, if you really want to go ahead with it, we have language that is a little more.
Yeah, because it strikes, okay.
But they would still have to go through the permitting process.
Yes,
And the
yes.
building
Right,
inspector would determine whether or not that has to go before the ARB.
Correct.
So there still is a fail-safe that the building inspector could look at it and
Somebody's
say,
looking at it, the building department is looking at it, the building inspector is looking at it. And he also has the ability to tag something and say, this should go to the ARB, and there's some criteria for that.
But what? So
There's some criteria for that. So in other words, if the building inspector determines that there's an issue with this particular thing, or it's really, the backyard is a very large thing, and he has the option to send it to the ARB himself.
any other comments one way or the other? We did, for everybody, we did internally, we distributed some to get a sense of people's priorities of the people on the board, what their priority was, and as well as whether they thought this was a good idea or not. And the general sense of things that the reading Andy's memo, that I think we all thought it was a good idea as a priority. I think you didn't think it was as high a priority as maybe I did, but
Yeah.
Pascal, but still you thought it was a
Right, I think
reasonable idea.
yeah, to me, I think I'm all for, doing what we do in practice, codifying it. I think that's,
Yeah,
a
smart.
good idea, smart to do. To me, it's more like if it's something easier to if it's a fix that we can do fast, then it's higher in my priority because it gets done faster. But yeah, I'm swayed either way is more what I'm saying. I think it's worth doing for sure.
Do you have anything you wanna, anybody else? The process for this would be what? What should we do if we want to at least consider it and look at an actual language on it? Do we just,
You could ask for a draft code amendment.
okay, so that would be Dennis.
Yeah, Dennis and Bob,
I would ask Bob.
Bob starts, Dennis
Prepare.
corrects, I weigh in, and
thank you.
we get to it.
And then-
Manny looks at it, it's a work product of our team essentially.
And if it gets past that section and you actually go to public hearing, then I'll do the secret documents and the review on that. So that's, and then you're off on your own.
I think the way that Pascal put it is perfect. It's like, if this is what we're already doing, then, it kind of makes sense for us to codify it and not waste everybody's time and money. We kind of did that with the sign review as well. for the commercial signs, it's like, these signs always get approved, so why are we making someone file an application and wait for the next meeting and then the whole thing and.
But we also kind of did that too, a little bit with the adaptive, what is the adaptive, we've been doing things like that
Yeah,
this past year.
Yeah, that was it was same thing with the parking requirement.
Yes, yes,
It
yeah.
was like they always waive it in these situations
Right.
when there's a adaptive. All right. Everybody good with that plan to figure out some language,
Mhm.
go back and forth, and then eventually come back to us for implementation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just one note, Bob, if possible, in the future, memos like this, can we get it earlier? And not just.
Well, if my printer didn't,
You know, the fridge, you can email it to us.
Email.
Save the trees.
You know, it's a great memo, and the problem is like, it would be useful to have it so we could digest it before the meeting, but thank you for doing it, thank you for doing the work, and because at least we can get you've thought about these things for last week while you wrote it.
I've never yet been before a board where you presented an issue and then it didn't go on for a couple of months, so.
So there's gonna be
Knock
time,
on wood.
we have time to review it, okay. All right, tell us about we're ready for number 2, the planning board? Let's talk about the planning board. It's the same concept, right, to limit a little bit the scope of the planning board on issues that they
This
pretty much
is,
pass on.
Primary, there's a couple of things. First thing is to eliminate the planning board site plan review for 1 and 2 family residences. A number of municipalities exclude this, review. Mamaroneck has never reviewed it. They don't look at 1 and 2 family homes, except if it's a wetland permit. Mount
Is
Vernon,
that, excuse me, is that new construction? Or
it's anything.
anything? So
Right.
it's New construction.
Alterations. And we specifically talked about the actual language there, alterations or new construction for 1 and 2 family residences. So Mount Vernon doesn't do it, but they actually do it 1, 2, and 3, but they're a city. And the Village of Tarrytown, they use triggers. So in other words, if a single family home, if they're increasing the FAR by 25%, this is just an example, it would go back to the planning board. However, they came rid of this. The planning board has been complaining about this, and the board of trustees wants to again eliminate that. So that's where that's going in Tarrytown. It's a very, I looked back from 2020 to 2023, and I gave you a chart in terms of how many 1 and 2 family residences were applications and the total number of applications for that particular year.
Yeah.
So it adds up over the 5-year period, but. And again, we've talked to the planning board about that, and they're very much in favor of doing this.
So this specifically to eliminate 1 and 2 family buildings from planning board review,
Right.
whether it's for new construction or for any alterations.
Because quite honestly, I'm also getting sick and tired of getting decks from Upper Nyack to do a review on those for GML.
So, what is the rationale for making the cutoff at the 1, 2, or 3 family? What's the rationale for why
Well,
the planning department doesn't need to, the planning board doesn't need to look at them? Is it, I mean, it's just the fact that they're pretty much straightforward?
There's not a lot of things that you're doing in terms of site planning on especially a small lot here that's a 1-family house. And again, it's costly for them, and there's not a lot of, you don't get a lot of bang for your buck, so to speak.
Yeah, and you're saying it also, again, the building inspector is doing all the normal review of everything.
Right.
It's just a matter of whether it goes to the planning board, which adds a layer of complexity and cost to everybody.
And I had even mentioned 3-family because Mount Vernon does it that way, and Manny said he'd rather not do the 3-family because 3-family in Nyack is considered to be a multifamily.
Okay.
So that's, and the multifamily continues.
Yeah, so,
Industrial, well, there's no industrial, everything else continues, except 1 and 2 family,
What about,
houses.
what about the ability of the neighboring properties to be able to, usually when it goes to the planning board, it's noticed and, people can object or can say, well, you know what, this is too high, this is too long. I mean, does that, beware of unintended consequences. That's.
We don't see many people coming up for a particular thing, and sometimes I think it's very rare that they do, but,
do they get notice if it's not goes to the planning board? Do they still get notice if it just goes to a building department?
no, they don't get notice if it goes to the, just to the building department itself.
So he's right that the notice function, even if it's not taken advantage of, I'll get you, I know you have a question, I'm sorry, I'll get you in. Even if the,
I have an important piece of information to
okay, even if the, person, even if they're not taking advantage of it by coming in to make statements about the fact that someone's building a house next door to them or whatever the case may be, or doing some work on the house next door to them. The fact that they get the notice to some extent keeps the village from, keeps people from feeling as if there's stuff going on they're not knowing. Like there's a certain amount of fairness that I think is implicit in the notice, please. What's your legal point?
The neighbors certainly will get notice if any variance whatsoever is required. I believe what's being proposed here is if a 1 or 2 family home is proposing some type of construction that does not require a variance, it would not need to go to the planning board. Now, that doesn't ameliorate your concern about neighbors being kept in the dark, so to speak, if no variances are required. And that's certainly a meritorious discussion to have. But because you mentioned if it's too tall, if it's too wide, if it's too big, then in all likelihood it will require a variance. If it does not require a variance, then by definition of our zoning regulations, it's not too tall, it's not too big, it's not too close to the side.
And if it was not subject to a variance, then there would be no basis for a neighbor coming in and, trying to get it stopped anyway. The planning board would generally not, if
Well,
it
you
was
really
within the
can't
rights
stop
of
it,
the
but they-
homeowner, they're not gonna stop it.
Take their, and also we're not really looking, there's not a lot of stormwater that you're looking at there. There's not a lot of, there's no traffic, there's no, drainage, there's no, you're not doing landscaping there. There's not a lot of other things you're doing with a typical site plan, that type of application.
Houses in Nyack are so close together, right? That somebody can put in a pad or can put whatever, and that can cause drainage issues to the neighbors. I mean, so it can open up a Pandora's box. Because the neighbors won't have any recourse.
Well, the building department is going to take care of that anyway, in terms of the drainage. And
There's
the,
something, sorry, Bob.
Go ahead.
There's something we can incorporate into the local law that says that all building permit applications are subject to review by the building inspector and or village engineer in the discretion of the building inspector to satisfy any drainage concerns. I have language, I've done it many times, where this way, if Manny or any building inspector is looking at a plan, and says, you're changing the topographical grade elevations on the land, and I think that we should have our village engineer look at it, send it to the village engineer. So you can make the local law subject to that review, regardless of whether or not it goes to the planning board.
I understand that, but the neighbor might, I'm just saying, they're hypothetical. I don't have this problem, but people might have this problem. They see a plan going up and they say, well, you know what, this guy doesn't have, the leaders of the gutters are going out and I'm gonna be affected by it and my basement will start flooding. Is there any way that?
As far as the building department review,
His point is that the neighbors not being noticed about the issue doesn't give them the opportunity to weigh in while the building department is doing its review. And I think your point would be that if the person's within the code, they're within the code, and the neighbors' protests are not going to be,
And also
but the ability to
you
protest.
have your own stormwater law that actually deals with a lot of this stuff anyway.
I'm sorry, you wanted to get in a while ago.
Well, I just want to make sure that I was understanding it. So that means like if somebody wanted to just go put a deck up in their backyard and it was like within 10 feet of the property line, so they're not going over any kind of variance, they could just building?
No, they have to get a building permit and they have
It's
to go
a
through,
permit, but they don't actually have to come to the board.
they don't have to go to the planning board. They gotta go to the building inspector and he has to approve all the plans, correct? Do I have this right?
So it would be like, kind of like how they are with a shed right now. You don't have to go if it's under a certain amount of feet.
Right.
Yeah, that would be a good analogy.
So under.
But if it's in the front yard, I
Or
understand
something
that
like
they
that.
would have to go to the ARB, which is something that, viewable from the street.
Anything in the front yard would go to ARB.
Right.
And
And even if you're doing the windows and it's on the side, and you can see that from the street, they also have to go to the ARB for that.
So many renovations to single and two-family homes are visible from the street. So they would go to the ARB, but not to the planning board. They would go to the ZBA if they needed a variance on a setback or something like that. So
I have to,
the point is that
there's nobody that comes.
taking them out of the planning board doesn't mean they're not going to a board. If they're doing anything that can be seen from a street, they're going to the ARB. And if they're doing anything that requires a variance, like having a deck that's within slightly
It's too close to
a fence, and whatever it is, they gotta go to the zoning anyway. So many applications would be going to those boards anyway. They just wouldn't go to the planning board because the planning board typically is about traffic and drainage and things like that.
so the question that Joe's asking is not really what the planning board would be reviewing in most cases anyway. It's not what's within their plan, within their review. Or is it?
Drainage is within the planning board
Drainage,
review.
okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, go ahead.
So if it's not going to the planning board, are they still going to actually check to make sure that everything is correct? Like, for example, like if I wanted to redo a deck, typically I would imagine they want the plans, the architectural plans for that. And to make sure that it's actually built correctly, and that it's not gonna actually fall down and poorly done.
That's the building inspector's job, is to make sure it's.
But we're not taking that part away.
No, that's not reviewed by the planning board anyway. They're not going and doing site inspections on these things. That's all done by the building inspector who has to give the final certification and all that it's been built correctly. Thank you. Those are good questions. Thank you for clarifying that.
ADA requirements, things like that, that's all the building department and their point of view.
Is there a reason to maybe make a distinction between new construction and existing construction? That new construction is inherently more disruptive of the neighbors in the
What
community
you
that
could
notice
do,
might be
for
more.
example, is if it's a subdivision, which the planning board has the only, of what that has the ability or jurisdiction to do, what subdivisions, okay? You could actually say that if you do a subdivision and then you're building a house on that subdivided land, the board could, review it to make sure that it adheres to what their review was in terms of the subdivision. Well, the subdivisions around here are like one lots.
So subdivision, when you say subdivision,
It's,
you're talking about just any kind of new construction,
no,
Any
I'm
kind
talking
of
about
new-
an actual subdivision where.
but they need a subdivision plan to be able to build a new house on a lot or something. That's the point you're making. You're calling it. Because people think subdivision, they're thinking a different type of scale of what a property would be.
It just means drawing a new line on the map to create two parcels.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and that was part of what there was something else with regard to the planning board site review that you wanted us to look at. What was the other piece?
Yeah, there's another one that, we're talking about subdivisions.
Oh.
Lot apportionment. A lot apportionment is a change of a lot line where the dimensions of the two existing lots are changed, but there's no additional building lot created. So in other words, Joe, you're getting together with Joe, the two Joes.
Yeah,
And you're changing your line to accommodate some issue. We see this not all the time, but we see it. And you're not creating an additional structure, you're not doing anything else with that lot. And you're not creating a new lot, it's an existing lot. So you're just changing the lot line 2 or 3 feet, and it could be an encroachment that you've had in the past, and you want to correct that without doing an easement. So that's what a lot of apportionment is. And most places in Westchester County, at least, everything over here in Rockland is a subdivision. If you drop the pencil, it's a subdivision. But in Westchester, it's done by, administratively by the building department. And what you have to do in the building department is you have to verify that you're not creating any, variances or anything else there. And then you have to, provide that information to the assessor's office so that they incorporate that, not only in the county, but in the
Tax
local.
maps.
Yeah, so
Um,
that's, we've had two of them so far this, year.
the latter 2 points of the three, there's sort of three things going on here. One of them is, do we limit planning board review of certain, 1 and 2 family home alterations or construction? Number 2, the subdivision issue. Number 3, the lot apportionment issue. The last two are relatively technical, it seems to me, like we're putting something in the planning board that they're pretty much reviewing. They're approving something that is pretty much a done deal, and they're not gonna make any significant changes to it, so getting it off their docket
The
would
other
make
thing is
sense.
that, for example, we did a lot of apportionment, in the planning board. And it was a very slight difference between the lot line and whatever, and I had to do with a former encroachment, bringing them back into conformance, period. And what we had to do is go through SEQA for that. So it took,
So it adds a lot of
it
extra.
made, we can't ignore SEQA on that because it's not done administratively.
The latter two, like I said, strike me as fairly technical and not substantive and serious. And the first one's a little bit more, I think we have to think about it, because the way it was described was limiting the scope of the planning board to exclude alterations of 1 and 2 family homes that have no impact on typical planning issues. And the way I understood that was, for certain types of 1 and 2 family homes, there would not be planning board review, but not that we'd be excluding 1 and 2 family homes entirely. But I guess if your point was that there are certain types of 1 and 2 family alterations that the building inspector would say this has to go to planning board, those would still go to planning board. It's like what we said before about the A or B.
The building
inspector has the
that
authority to just send it up.
Right.
And then there would be the normal notice and things like that. So the building inspector could have basically the review of, say, this is a de minimis, is a minor, it's not gonna affect anybody, so doesn't need zoning, doesn't need any zoning appeal, doesn't need anything.
You can't give that much discretion to the building inspector, and they don't want it. If you're going to carve out exceptions to going to the planning board for single family homes, so you have the exception, single family, 2 family homes don't need to go to the planning board if no variance is required.
If it's no
Fine, you
A or
can have
B,
exceptions to that, where a building inspector may, scratch his chin and say, well, maybe the planning board ought to take a look at that. You gotta lay out very specific criteria for the building inspector to apply to that determination.
Bob, is that a reasonable way to try to resolve this, to say that we're gonna exclude 1 and 2 family homes, except in circumstances when, and then we can identify certain circumstances where we feel that it would be necessary to go to the planning board? Like we can identify the things that we think are some of the things that you mentioned,
You would
some
have
of the things
to
that
put that
the
into the
young woman
goals
mentioned.
relative to the building inspector. For example, with the ARB, we have language there that gives the building inspector criteria.
Okay, so we can come up with a second, can I suggest that we do that? And let's get some criteria and let's see what that looks like. And then I think the second and third of the issues regarding the lot apportionment and the subdivision.
Yeah, absolutely. The first one is a tricky one.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a little bit nervous about that. Just allowing carte blanche, it has to be very,
I
Detail.
was a planning board chair for 16 years in
no,
Merrimack,
Yeah.
and another 10 years on the board, and
Okay.
we never looked at a single family home.
All right, so we do things a little differently, as we sometimes
I
happens
do
here.
wanna push back on the carte blanche, because it does sound like it sounds like there's still a process that has to be gone through.
by the building inspector,
Right.
right?
So there is still a layer of a check and you know, there's oversight.
Yeah, I'm not
there
saying,
as well, right?
I'm not trying, I'm just saying that there's always areas that there could be problems.
It's a
And minimize
philosophical-
as much as possible.
You're really talking about a philosophical point of view in terms of, you know, to give the public the opportunity to always, even if they don't take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So that's where I think that Joe is coming down on. Now, you could also tweak it a little bit. You could say it's just for alterations, but some of the alterations may be construction. You know, the only thing with construction, you don't have that many of that here. You could do something where if it's a related to something that the planning board did a subdivision on, and like this is what they do in Tarrytown, for example, they do a lot of larger subdivisions, and they still will have the ability to look at a site plan for a particular lot in that subdivision. But we're talking about large subdivisions and whatever, but that's,
Yeah.
you know, something you might want to do.
I'll give you a concrete example of something I personally came up against, okay? I won't mention names, but one of my neighbors built an extension to their house. And they wanted the extension to go 15 feet. And that extension would have basically blocked our windows. We have living room windows, the view. And we, you know, saw it, we saw the plans, the ARB and so forth. And that gave us an opportunity to talk to the neighbor, and we agreed mutually, instead of going 15 feet, they only went 12 feet. So they accommodated us and we accommodated them. But basically bypassing the ARB, and the ARB, which is.
Was this in the back or?
It was in the back,
Yeah.
in the back. So bypassing the ARB basically would have given me no recourse to be able to negotiate and to talk to, which I would have known, all of a sudden I would have woken up and there would be an additional. So you need to give people the ability to question and to be able to object to what a neighbor is doing, if it's going to affect their, you know, their
Quality of life.
yeah, the quality of life, you know, the view shed, everything. So that's why I'm a little bit nervous, because I've had personal experience, and luckily I knew, and we were able, you know, reasonable people can come to reasonable agreements, and that's what we did.
All right,
That's why you guys get the big bucks.
yeah, yeah. All right,
And then the last one was mechanical equipment, which I think is a no-brainer.
mechanical equipment, that we didn't even get a
That's from
preview of
ARB
that.
review. That's in my opinion.
Exam mechanical, from ARB, okay. Yeah, I think that let's see language on that as well. Let's, with the second one with regard to the planning board, exemption of single family, I think what we're thinking is that we'd be allowing an exemption with certain criteria that would mean that would still have to go to the planning board if certain criteria were met. And I think we can probably, given Joe's point, I think we can put the same sort of criteria with regard to the ARB exception as well. With the idea that, because there is some specific language in here that you mentioned, but let's see if there's some specific things that we might want to put in to say, well, this has to go to ARB. I mean, we're going to eliminate a lot from their dockets, like this, I call dockets, whatever. They're leaving a lot from their pile that they're gonna have to look at, which I think is good. But the idea that let's put a little bit back in the situations where it might be necessary. I will say that generally, I hear a lot from, I mean, my past life in real estate, that Nyack is a hard place to do some of these things. There's you have to go to the planning board a lot more than you do in other communities, and that does lead to people not wanting to do things here and make it, you know, we should try to make life a little bit easier if we can, while at the same time protecting situations like the one Joe described. So everybody good on kind of the general, again, we're not voting anything, we're not deciding anything, we're just making suggestions to see some language on those issues, which I think are worth pursuing. I'm gonna just throw out Andy, I'm gonna not throw out, I'm gonna toss up for board discussion, a couple of quick things to get them off the list so we can focus on the things that require more discussion. Anybody have a problem with veterinarian clinics and trying to find a way to distinguish them so we can allow veterinarian clinics in the village as distinct from kennels? Everybody okay with that?
The only thing I would mention is that you may want to condition or have a use condition that you're not doing boarding.
Yeah, that's the point. No boarding, no overnight stays, which we talked to a veterinarian. Are you the veterinarian?
I'm the
You're the
veterinarian.
veterinarian. Hey, it's nice to meet you in person. Stand up
They're doing
and
overnight.
introduce yourself.
Just quickly, I'd introduce myself. My name's Chris Gaylord. I'm a small animal veterinarian. I owned a practice for 8 years in Park Slope neighborhood of Brooklyn. I sold that in 2021, and then that summer moved here just in time for my son to start kindergarten at Upper Nyack. And I've been bouncing around, working at some of the local practices, kind of figuring out what I want to do next. And lately, I've been really thinking about a small animal practice downtown, and then kind of bumped into this zoning requirement where you can't have a small animal practice. So, it's a project I'd like to do, and I'm, available and happy to answer any questions at any point that anyone had about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, he emailed us when we were asking about that. We asked about boarding and he said they don't really do that anymore.
Again, there may be occasions, being a dog owner myself, where you have an overnight stay because there's been some surgical thing or they have to stay overnight, but they're not boarding them there.
And what he does is he sends them somewhere else to stay overnight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, more and more general practice places are, if an animal needs overnight care, they generally need, the thought is then they should have 24-hour supervision. And in a general practice setting, it's very hard to staff that and take on that liability. So we would, at least, in what I'm envisioning, we would ship them somewhere with 24.
Everybody good with the idea that we get some, there's gotta be models out there of like other municipalities that allow, so let's follow we don't have to make any new law here. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. So make life a little easier on dentists. They can just take whatever they're using in Tarrytown or whatever and apply it. Because I think it's a good idea, and I welcome to Nyack, and we hope you get your veterinarian practice. As an owner of 3 dogs, 2 of which are small, it would be a nice thing to have. So thank you for coming and bringing that to us. The other one I want to just make quick. Is there another one I wanted to make quick work of? Oh, the STR, short-term rental regulation. I don't know if this takes a lot of work, because I think all I'm suggesting is that we look at a proposal that would limit, that would require short-term rentals to be, have a minimum stay requirement. And then whether they would be subject to the hotel tax. Just language on those 2 things. And I think that they're both good ideas. I don't think we should be a place where, people can do a one-night stay but if we want to do that, I think we can get up there. Well, obviously, if we want to do it, we'd have to have a public hearing, and then there are a few rentals here in Nyack, and hear from them and see what they have to say about it, because I'm not wedded to it, but I think in the city, they have a 30-day minimum.
Yeah.
Most places, they have a 30-day minimum off season, or if it's like a vacation place, it might be a week.
Maybe a maximum,
Manny has suggested.
No, minimum.
so somebody has to stay at least 30 days.
In the city, if you do you cannot do Airbnb for less than 30 days.
This is really,
Yeah, that passed last year. They're trying to, the problem with short-term rentals is that they restrict inventory. And people can make sometimes more money by renting it out for short term than they can by renting it out full time, but it brings in, people staying for a short period of time rather than someone living here. So there's some public policy issues there. Do you have something you want to add on this?
No, I was just going to say that Manny had mentioned, Manny does some work up in Cornwall, and they have a very good, what he thinks is a very good short stay
Rule.
and legislation, and you might want to take a look at that and I provide
Is
that.
it in the page? Okay.
There's reference to it in there? Okay.
And it's interesting, Tarrytown, for example, when they did their hotel tax several years ago, all of a sudden they started every quarter getting checks from corporate Airbnb. And they didn't even know they had Airbnbs in the village, but if you make sure that you actually include them in your hotel tax, the corporations will adhere to the quarterly payments. And they'll handle it themselves, not the individuals.
Okay. Anything else from these, the veterinarian or the short-term rentals?
No.
Okay, so we can strike those off. Let's go much meatier issue with rooftop dining, which is the next issue on the list. For some background, the board did look at this. I think, I want to say it's 2 or 3 years ago. Donna was on the board then. I don't think the other 3 board members were on the board then. And we reviewed it and we went pretty far down the road on it. But the problem was there weren't a lot of places in Nyack that would meet the criteria that we had unofficially adopted, which was the idea that you could not have rooftop dining in a place that it was exposed to substantial windows of apartments that were nearby. So if it was a 1-story building and there's a 2-story building on either side, and the second story of those nearby buildings, those next door buildings are apartments, then if you put rooftop dining on the roof, there's people eating and drinking and listening to music right outside someone's bedroom.
Right.
Can't have that. So we agreed on that. And the second criteria that we thought was that you couldn't have a rooftop dining unless there was a continuous ownership, or that in other words, that you can't have a restaurant on the first floor, apartments on the second, and then rooftop dining on the
We
third.
don't want apartments in them.
You don't want apartments, so you don't want people carrying food through hallways of, so those 2 things, and if you take those 2 things out, there weren't a lot of places that would qualify. But there are a couple when we look at it, and we did approve rooftop dining in the other zone for the Nyack Hotel.
Right.
So the question is, there are a couple places that would benefit from it, and it is a nice thing. It would help some of the places that would get the qualification. So do we want to reconsider it? I will tell you, I've been generally in favor of the general idea. I will stipulate, he's not here, but Steve, I'm blanking last name, the planning board,
Knowlton.
let's do Dalton.
Knowlton, it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
He, the zoning board, sorry,
Oh, okay.
he has said that he thinks we had a conversation about it, and he said that he just thinks it's a bad idea, would bring in, we'd increase our noise complaints and other sorts of issues that come up. So there was kind of it's a real tough, this is a tough one. This is a tough nut because there's good argument, there's good reason to do it for the businesses, and there's also some concerns about what it might do to, some of the externalities it might create.
I sort of lean on where Steve falls. I don't really think this is a good idea for downtown. Privacy concerns are its own, that I think is more fixable than anything, but we already hear a lot about noise down there. I think this will just increase a lot of the noise that we already hear in that area. Also, I'm also concerned about just the fact that everyone's usually drinking downtown and God forbid anything happens, so there's a little bit of a safety concern. I think, Hotel 9 is just a little different because of where it's located and it's in a uniquer situation. Downtown, it's already pretty lively down there as is. I worry about adding this extra element to it.
Yeah, and I'm also, if it can only benefit 1 or 2 locations, who physically could have it, what's the point? It's gonna bother a lot more people. Because one of the problems that I see is noise, and we have an enforcement issue. And if we can't enforce the noise code, then why allow more of that to happen?
That's sort of what you're saying, and that's what's been going on. And we have something in here about noise anyway.
Someone had their hand up, or
No, I just want to say, if you are gonna have this, there should be a lot of control over making it safe. Because I did see someone fall off a roof in.
Yes.
Before.
You're absolutely right.
So we did that at the Hotel 9.
Until now, we did have some concerns about that.
Safety
Yeah.
Okay, good.
review about how, barriers and
Yeah. But if the
lighting.
neighbors could have something to say, I think it would be great. Whoever the proposing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, we already have noise issues downtown. And I think without sort of addressing those concerns, it sort of seem, a little foolish to open up even more a situation where we can't control even more. That said, I would also, say that we have more echoes downtown, noise coming off of the buildings, just the way the corridors are. And that's the difference between, I would say, the Hotel Nyack situation and our downtown Hotel Nyack. That noise just goes out and it sort of blends in with the throughway there. Downtown, it's just gonna echo throughout and.
I think these are all very well, the points were very good from I think all the points from the board that people have made some skepticism. I think that's articulates a very reasonable point about this. I think those are reasonable concerns. I think when I think about the rooftop dining, I think more about dining than I do about loud music, but I think that that's a fine distinction that we have to draw in the regulations. I'm willing to say that both of you rated this very low as the thing we thought it was not a good idea. And I think that if Donna's also not think it's a great idea, I think it's not worth pursuing right now. We can pick it up at some other point if anything changes, or if we get, it might be somebody might come in with a plan on a particular property that we might want to, might say, oh, this would actually work in this space as opposed to any place else, the way that Hotel Nyack did. And then we can reconsider it then. But I think for right now, we can strike it from the list. We good? All right.
Good.
The ADU issue, you want to take us through this a little bit, Bob, about the idea of adding
Right.
ADUs?
Well, just as a preface to that, Manny and I have been having conversations back and forth on this. The single family zones that you have represent less than 20% of the residential properties in the village. It's over in the northeast section. There's about, I think, it's 125 properties in the single family zones. There's really one that's in the northeast, that's SF1, and then there's SF2, Dickinson, and that encompasses 125 properties. And the two family zones have 728 properties. They're mostly in the middle and on the pew. So there's a lot more opportunity in the two family zones with undersized lots and whatever. We may want to actually review that. And this is where Manny's coming from. With the GIS, he can actually look and develop some data in terms of how many are single family homes in the two family zone and how many are not two family homes. And then what's the obstacles to not having some of the, more two-family homes in the two-family zone. So we'd have to do some more research on that. And Manny had said he would help with that. But the ADUs are primarily in single-family zones. That's what they started in Connecticut in the 1980s. They were called brandy flats. And now the state of Connecticut has increased it a lot more. Governor Hochul does a fine thing in the state's housing initiatives. The accessory units are, and I actually helped with the ADUs in the entire town with the drafting of the legislation and also doing the sequel review on that entire town.
I wouldn't to cut you off, but we're running out of time, so I want to try to narrow this down. One of the suggestions that was made was simply with the idea that some of these single family homes could accommodate as a two-family home if they do a certain a separate entrance, or it could be a basement, it could be a garage, it could be something like that. ADU would normally be a garage, not a basement, because it's supposed to be another building entirely. But I just wanted to show that, because the board might not have seen how small the single family zone is. The single family zone is in green here, right? This is there in green, and this is not even, there's not even any.
No, it's the Oakville Cemetery.
It's
It's all those holding zones. They don't.
I don't think so. Okay. So this is, we don't, doesn't matter. It's all cemetery. And then there's this one area here, which is the single family zone. The pink, which is much larger, is the multifamily zone. And there was a suggestion made.
It's a two-family zone.
It's a two-family, sorry, I said multi-family, not multi, I think of multifamily as two-family zone, not multifamily zone, two-family zone. That's the TFR, that's the sort of this rose colored, okay? Is to simply just convert the single family to TFR. With the idea that anyone who owns a single family home, and I, just to full disclosure, I live in that zone, I live right there. That it would relax the rules on allowing somebody who has a house, if they wanted to put in an accessory dwelling unit or to split it up in some way, it would legalize that opportunity. Now, there are homes in that area that I know for a fact are people are living, they're basically, you know, 4 or 5, they've cut it up into apartments and they're not legal, which is not good. We should be either legalizing or outlawing them.
What the ADU does is, and what they found out is that it legalizes. So in other words, you actually have to register so you can actually, you know, legalize those. There's funding for that in the state habitat. Well, I won't go into detail on it, but I'm going to give you a presentation on ADUs that would be very helpful in terms of what is it all about and what's the criteria for it.
Well, I think that'll be very helpful. And so I think we should table this tonight.
Yes, I think exactly right. Well, let's get further discussion on this. Let's not do anything more than get some more information from Bob about some of the things that he would suggest on this. It's a big change and it's something, we also have to get the indication I've gotten is that a lot of the objections to ADUs come from the fire department, so we want to hear from them.
Right.
In terms of they worry that it complicates their work. I think that some of that is the fact that when they think ADUs, they think illegal ADU. That's where they have, where they really have the problems is when they don't know that there's an apartment in the basement.
Right,
There is. But I think it's definitely worth looking at and let's push it down. We're not ready for language. We just want to see some
I
concepts.
would just, my 2 cents is I would not rezone single family to 2-family. I think you're asking for trouble.
We're asking for angry neighbors of
Yeah.
mine. Yes, I know.
Right.
That's, it's not a big group of people, but it is also the thing that's been coming down from the state. It's been to try to you can have a single family, but you don't have to have a single family. In a property because we're trying to increase more housing. All right, so more study needed.
You could probably pass it any place. That's beside the point.
All right, you'll follow up with more information on that. We have about 5 minutes left. In that 5 minutes, what I would suggest is that we pick this up in another workshop because we have some big things to discuss, including the waterfront district zoning. And then some of the other things are small, but the one thing I did want to because it's small and I want to make sure I cover it because I told somebody to come down, the gentleman that emailed us about the noise issue that he's having. I'd like to at least talk about the noise issue for a second. Is the gentleman here that brought? Yes, okay, please stand up and introduce yourself and just, we got your email, and you live above Woolworth, is that it? Or what's called now?
I share a wall with Woolworth.
It's called something else now, it's
It's
called the
now
bridge.
called, the bridge.
The bridge, okay.
Correct, I'm on, 90 Main Street.
And you've been here before, right?
Yes.
And you sent us,
Yes.
Yep.
And your name's Martin.
That's right, my name's Martin. Yes.
So the issue is, we brought this up, Andy, as a suggestion of should we amend this law on the noise? Should we amend the noise ordinance to make it easier to enforce in some ways, to make it, and maybe, as you've suggested sometimes, to make it easier to comply, that there are certain compliance issues that it might be too hard for some building owners to comply in a reasonable way, but at the same time, I think that the code needs to be enforced as it exists.
So the predicament we have right now is that this gentleman here, his noise situation is a violation of the code, interior vibrations.
Already, yeah.
The resolution to that is either shut down the business that's producing it or get them to spend X number of hundreds of thousands of dollars creating noise dampening installations, an architectural overhaul of the building So that when they're banging on drums or they're cranking up the music, he can't hear it in his apartment.
Well, it was just as a third option, which they turn the music down to a level that it's not as disruptive to them.
Yeah, and respectfully, it's not only.
What?
Vibration.
It's not only-
It's not only vibrations, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, without going into all of the stuff, there are things in the code that I can see are difficult to enforce. And there are things that are objectively, I believe, not difficult to enforce. And at this point, even the things that are simple to enforce are not being enforced. And that would be, I mean, as I read the code, I mentioned this in my email, on weeknights after midnight and on weekends after 2, it's not supposed to be plainly audible. It's not about whether it's vibrating or whether I can pick it up on a meter, which you can, but plainly audible, and that's not enforced.
I actually think, and I'm sorry, we have to wrap this up because we got to start the regular meeting. And I appreciate you coming down and I appreciate you emailing us about the issue as well. It's something that as I emailed you back, it's very frustrating because a lot of times issues come to us, which are, that could be resolved by people acting reasonably. And when they continue to act unreasonably.
1000%, I agree. I think the vast majority of people are interested in being neighborly.
Yeah.
And you want to be a good neighbor.
It's the same issue with the noise downtown is that,
That's the vast majority of people.
I'm sorry, noise in the waterfront.
I do think that, going forward for this current generation, I mean, not to make a big stink about noise, it's gonna be looked upon like smoking. These are like a lot of the same arguments.
It's bad for health.
We're all old enough to remember when you could smoke everywhere and everybody was concerned it's gonna kill our business if you can't smoke. And then it was like, well, you know what, let's have a smoking section because, well, no, it's smoke, it goes everywhere. Sound very, very similar.
All right. The one thing I would suggest is the one problem is not so much that it's really about enforcement, which is a police issue that we don't have any real control over. And the police, as I indicated in the email,
Yeah.
they're going to be more concerned with some of the more death and destruction, whatever issues of people like, as opposed to noise issues.
Yeah.
And the other problem is that we don't have people to do code enforcement of noise issues at night. And I think we need to, I don't think it's a legislative issue so much as it's, how do we figure out how to enforce these codes?
And if I could just say one more thing, there's 2 issues here, and yes, if you're trying to go into an existing, nightclub that took no consideration of sound attenuation, you want to retrofit it so that they can be neighborly and still have their thing cranked and have 1,000 people in there. Yes, it's quite expensive. So there's an issue of like, how do you deal with that? Then there's also, how do you have it so in the future, this is not a thing? Because if when that space was being built out and considerable amount of coin was spent on that, if they had taken these considerations into account, we wouldn't be here, right? And I think those are the things that, if you're working in, for example, New York City, you don't get off the ground without having an acoustic either a consultant in there or all these things are taken into account. So that you can go ahead and have a party till 4 o'clock in the morning, which is what we're allowing here.
All right.
So,
Thank you. And thanks for coming down. Here's my suggestion is that we knew that we were going to be tight for time, given the number of issues that we took up, but we made some progress in some of the bigger ones. There are some big ones still to be discussed that I think we really do need to discuss. And so I would suggest that we set a workshop for one of our meetings coming up to do this. Well, we have one in 3 weeks we're not the normal 2-week period.
We have one on February 29th.
February 29th is our next meeting. That's 3 weeks from today. It is the meeting that we are having, we're going to be talking about putting a public hearing on for the ETPA, right?
Yeah.
That's gonna be that meeting for the ETPA. So it might be a bit of a long night, but I think we can,
Yeah, because
I think we should get to this. This is
Yeah,
good
because
stuff.
I think the noise thing is something we need to
Oh, yeah,
address
yeah.
also.
I think the noise thing, but also I think
This
that,
is a workshop, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think we do the workshop. You guys okay with the workshop that night?
Yeah.
All right, so let's, the issues that we didn't quite get to yet, we'll have a little bit more time to digest the memo. As you said, this takes 6 months, so we're gonna try to get through another set of issues in 3 weeks. And And then there's some other issues that weren't on this list, which Andy added to the memo, so we'll incorporate those as well. There's some other things that we gotta get into. And
That seems like a lot.
And
So
I'll
are we
provide you
gonna-
with the
so-
background. I had mentioned I was gonna send you stuff, so I'll send that to
Okay.
Andy and the board.
good, thank you. And yes, go ahead.
So just so I just want to be clear, so we're having a workshop the next meeting, is the noise thing gonna be continued with that? or
Yeah,
will
we'll
be
bring that
other
up. We'll re-bring that up. I just wanted to make sure we got to, because I told him to come down, and I wanted to make sure he had a chance to speak his piece to us. All right, let's close this out. We don't have to do anything formal. I don't have to like do a motion with my hands or
Yeah.
anything. I don't have a gavel.
We're gonna-
All right, we're gonna start the regular meeting in 30 seconds. Do we have to do anything with the camera? It's already running.
We have to do the.
All right, thank you all for coming. If you have any comments that you weren't able to make about the workshop, there is a public comment section at the beginning of the meeting that you'll have a chance to be able to make that public comment. Are we ready? Are we good? All right, we're doing the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And that begins the Thursday, February 8th meeting of the Nyack Board of Trustees. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate you being here. I'll get the agenda up in a second. I don't have it up because I was working on the other thing. I think we start with if anybody from the board wants to make some comments for everybody who's here and start us off.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Joe.
First of all, I'm sure, Joe, you're gonna talk about the event that happened last night, so I'll let you do that. But I just wanted to mention a couple of things. I did a NICOM course on government, various aspects, hour-long seminars, 4 seminars. Very interesting, and I'm gonna be sending Andy the actual Zoom sessions, so he can circulate it to everybody. It's opened my eyes. I mean, I read the NICOM manual, believe it or not, I read the manual,
Oh,
and at least most of it.
Quite impressive.
And I learned a lot. It actually kind of like focused on various sections of it. But I've been attending village board meetings for a long time. And many things that happened during the meetings, I didn't understand why it was happening. You know, why did you do this? The public, so it was actually, it's very good, and it's available online, the actual manual. You could download it if you're interested. You could actually understand the structure of the meetings.
I have a copy.
A copy of open meetings.
Use it as a resource.
Yeah, the way things are set up, the duties of the mayor. Okay. Anyway, that's number one. Number two is, well, that's it. I'll, that's for now.
I can email you all the manual. It's a PDF. It's searchable. It's great. Thank you.
I'd like that.
An
Thank
excellent
you.
resource,
Yeah.
and I rely on it quite often.
Donna, do you have anything you want to add?
I don't, I haven't been around.
Oh, how was your trip?
It was fantastic.
Oh, good.
I think I'm still there. So, no, nothing at this time.
Okay, Pascal?
Happy Black History Month, everybody. It's a wonderful month. There's a lot of things going on in the village.
What happens after this month if you're black?
Well, if you're a Black woman, it's Women's History Month, so 2 months of that.
Just say
for
that,
us.
like a month, yeah.
Yeah, but yes, Black History is 12 months out of the year, not just 1 month, but we do celebrate it in February, and we have a lot of good things going on in the village. So check it out, everybody. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Quickly, couple of things. We want to congratulate White Plains, which was awarded today the Downtown Revitalization
Yeah.
Grant Initiative, DRI grant. And then the villages of Montgomery and Highland, was it Highland Falls?
Yeah.
That got the New York Forward grants. We're disappointed that we had applied for those. But we're very happy for our colleagues and the residents of those cities and villages. It's a great program, and I just want to let everybody know we're going to redouble our efforts for this year. We're starting today on the process of doing next year's application. because it really would be a game changer for us to be able to get the DRI. I did want to thank the NAACP, the NIAC NAACP, for supplying Black History Month flags, which are the African American flag, which is they're now flying on Main Street, and I think we're going to have them flying up on Broadway. About 14 total flags. We had some news coverage today already with something in Low HUD, and there'll probably be something on News 12 later on, and in News and Views. I want to thank Congressman Mike Lawler, who was here earlier today to do I thought it was to do constituent service, but it was a town hall, and he took questions from residents on various issues. I was in for part of it. I want to congratulate, this is a big one. This is what Joe was referencing before. Last night, we had really a magnificent event run by Marcy Danker and Steven Sia from who do the NIAC 2030 Climate Action Plan. They had a climate action fair. There were probably about 15 different tables where you could get information, all non-for-profit, no commercial stuff. And they didn't even sell tickets to the raffle. You got free tickets to the raffle, and they gave stuff away. It was really, but there were probably, I counted 150 people there pretty much the whole event, and probably 300 cycled through one point or another. It was really a successful event for a Wednesday night in middle of February. A climate action fair got a huge turnout. It was great. They did a wonderful job, just like they've done a wonderful job on the plan. Do you want anything on that?
No,
You were there.
great.
I wanted to also say I spent Sunday through Tuesday up in Albany with at the New York Conference of Mayors. They have the legislative conference where it was really you were complimenting them on the work they do on their materials. It was a really good conference, a lot of good information that we brought back, and some programs that we're going to try to apply to. And then the only other thing that I want to do, I just want to state it so it's in the minutes, is that my wife applied. I didn't apply, but my wife applied on behalf of the family for a building permit for our home in Nyack. So I just want to have it's out there on the minutes that I applied for a building permit. I'm not asking for any special consideration. I just want, so if anyone says I'm putting it out there, full disclosure.
We'll get to hang out when it's done.
I'm just redoing my kitchen, but you're welcome to come to my kitchen and hang out. It actually is not, I'm gonna have to get all the stuff that we talked about. I have to get planning department. I gotta get.
The entire village gotta like run through.
I have to get the ARB. I have to get everything done. All right. Kim's here, and she's gonna give us a presentation on some programs, but let's just do if people had a public comments on any topic that's not on the agenda. I want to make sure we got through that, give people a chance to, if they have something they want to say. Again, it's not something on the agenda, but something on the agenda you have a chance to do public comment when we get to it as part of our agenda item. Does anybody have a public comment? I know there's some people that came and signed up. All right, remember there's a public comment section. When we talk about any resolution, when we talk about any action item, there's an opportunity for you to make a public comment. So we'll bring up Kim Cross from the Nyack Center to come tell us about some of the programs that the Village of Nyack funds for the Nyack Center. Thank you, Kim.
Sure. Glad stuff.
Stuff.
I think the last time I was here, I had t-shirts for you all. So this time I brought mugs, and I think I have enough. So I'm gonna oh, come on, you can never have enough mugs. You gotta support Nyack.
I got them in your office. You put pencils in it.
It's very dirty.
Well, now you have a clean mug.
Oh, this is beautiful. Look at this. This is great.
This is community love.
This is good. I love the art.
No, it is. It's a community love mug. There you go.
It's a big mug.
All right, I have one for Natalie too, so.
Okay.
It's from, and it's made by our friends at
Sniff a pickle.
Sniff a Pickle,
That's right.
downtown.
And we're also supporting Nyack Fresh.
And I bag.
Yeah.
You bought a bag and you're reusing it. That's good.
I am.
How could you not like this?
He liked it. He said,
accepted it.
he's being very careful.
He's now sorry.
We'll mark the value of what the mug is, so we have it In the record.
I'll also pass these out if people want to just take one and pass it down or pass it sideways.
Oh, there's one packet. Okay.
So this is just,
Jen White told me that, 75. Thank you.
here you go. Information about, us. It's all clipped together, so,
Okay.
here I have some for you guys too. I don't have mugs, I'm sorry, but if you want to take one and pass, well, come on over tomorrow, we'll give you one. So, this is just a brief outline of who we are and what we do. And I would love to invite any of you, I know Joe has come recently, to come take a tour, give me a call, we'll set it up. I know your day job, so. But 4 o'clock is the best time because you can come when we're the busiest and see us in action. So basically, for the benefit of everybody, we're 34 years in business, we're a nonprofit. And we're housed at the former Presbyterian Church, which is Nyack Center. And at about 6:30, our staff gets to the center in the morning, where we provide free breakfast and a safe place for people to drop their kids off before school so they can get to work. And I do want to point out that anybody can enroll their kids in programs, but we really do try to give priority to working families. So the kids go to their various schools and then they come back to us after school. And they're with us for until 5:30 or maybe 6:30 at night. They get homework help. We have a special grant since COVID with Nyack Public Schools, and we have 5 certified teachers who are on site doing one-on-one work and skill building for kids who have learning loss due to COVID. About 25 of those 87 kids are very much below reading level and below where they should be with math. But I would say probably about 64 need support. So we're grateful for that special connection. We also have a wonderful grant through Rebecca and Peter Lang, again, since COVID, which is a health and wellness project, which allows us to provide a variety of different enrichment for our kids. Since our kids are with us, they don't get to take a ballet class or, a cooking class or whatever. And so that happens on site. And then again, as part of the grant that we have with Nyack Public Schools, a couple days a week from 5:30 to 8 o'clock, there's free tutoring for middle school and high school students. And that's in math and in English. And it can be homework, it can be skill building, it can be college essay, SAT prep, whatever the child needs. Sign up is online, it's free. And then there's Camp Nyack, and Camp Nyack is part of what the Village funds. So there are 2 streams that come from the Village. One is for something called Youth Services, which pays for a portion of all of the different things that I mentioned, before school, after school care for young people in the community. Camp Nyack is a specific venture. It used to be run by the Village, and at some point, the Village realized it was costing a lot more for the Village to run it than it would be to ask us to do it. And we're in the business of taking care of kids, so it all worked out. So about 14 years ago, we started running camp for the Village. There's an RFP that goes out. We ask for the amount of money that's in the budget, and we run the camp. So that is something that I want to just highlight for everybody here, that camp actually costs about 15 to 20,000 more than what we get from the Village. And the camp is subsidized. So most of our families qualify for $10 a week. So just to back up for a second about our programming. Our breakfast program is free. Our after-school program, our parents pay between $10 and $35 a week. Most of the families who attend, because of their income levels, pay $10 a week. And they also pay $10 a week for full-day camp. Since COVID, we have been located up at Marydale. It is a fantastic opportunity for us and for our kids. Many of our kids are in situations where they don't have outdoor space that isn't public. And so this is a real opportunity for them to be able to run around in the woods. There's a pool there. It's really a fantastic site, as I think probably all of you know. The kids have breakfast and lunch. They get a whole variety of activities, again, through the special grant, through community members and swimming. And it's $10 a week for 6 weeks of camp. I mean, you really can't beat it. So we're very grateful to all of you for saying yes when the RFP comes through. Don't believe anybody else applies, but still great.
That's what I felt about running for mayor, same sort of concept.
Yep. We also run a teen program that meets a couple times a week. That is a leadership program for teenagers. It's coordinated by Morgan Strand, who some of you may know from Nyack Library, and it's a collaborative project with the school district as well. We also run the Nyack Youth Collaborative. It's the oldest collaborative in Rockland County. It's the first one, and it's like 30 years old. And right now it's still on Zoom, but it's a meeting of all nonprofits in Rockland County that serve youth in Nyack. So they may be a county-wide organization, but they participate because they do something with Nyack Youth. And it's a way to really make sure that we're streamlining services and that we're supporting each other. We also provide summer youth enrichment. That's through a grant through the county. And that is for up to 35 teenagers. And that is, again, enrichment, dance, yoga, music lessons, drama, all sorts of different opportunities in the summer. And we also are the site for the summer food program for the Villaage food program. As many of you know, we've distributed food for the school district during COVID and have morphed into a food distribution site. We get food from Soup Angels twice a week, and that gets distributed out to the community. Anybody can come and help themselves. We also get food through People to People, and we have our community refrigerator, which is still housed indoors for those of you who've been following along at home. And we do hope at some point to be able to afford to buy an outdoor refrigerator, which is what's been required by the Nyack building inspector. Not the state, not the county.
Well, the building inspector would like very much for your historic property not to burn down because there's a refrigerator that shorts out because it's out there in the rain. I think that was the feeling.
And yet we're the only village where that was thought of, and the county and the state both did not endorse that opinion, just to be clear.
Okay.
So we hope to be able to afford to do, it's about a $15,000 venture to have an outdoor rated refrigerator.
Outdoor
Yeah.
refrigerators are not cheap.
So that's the problem, and it's indoors, which is fine, except that
It's not accessible at night.
when we're closed, people can't access it. And the whole idea behind a community refrigerator is that there's nobody who needs to know that you've come and used it. You can come after your shift at 1 a.m. in the morning, pull into the parking lot and help yourself. So we're really hoping to make that happen. So if anybody has any great ideas or connections to outdoor rated refrigerator salespeople, please let us know.
Isn't there any way to mitigate fire issues?
If you have ideas about that, I would love to hear it. But at this point in time, apparently
I'm
not.
not a builder, so I don't know, but I can
Yes.
imagine have a cover or something, a shed.
But they were trying to cover it. That was the point. They were trying to cover.
That was always there from the beginning. But yeah, okay. So if you have ideas and if you want to take it on, I would love to talk to you more about it. So basically, I'm just here to let you know about what we're doing and thank you all for your contributions to the youth in the community. I did include a couple flyers just to point out a lot of the fundraisers that we have, in addition to renting the center, are ways that we raise funds to help augment so that our programs can be free and low cost. So we have our Black History Month celebration, which is on Saturday. We're honoring Karen Hughes, Horace Turnbull, and Sam Wayman. And our Martin Luther King Jr. Oratory Scholarship finalists will be performing. We also have a collaboration with the Center for Safety and Change, a conversation with Roxanne Gay, which is February 29th. It's going to be an incredible opportunity to get to hear her in person It's free, community conversation at Nyack Center. And then finally, we've chosen our honorees for our Women of Leadership and Vision brunch. Carol Anderson, Maggie Gershonovitz, and Yesenia Polanco. And we will be honoring in memoriam Nazir Gullafield, who passed away this past summer. It is also a scholarship opportunity. We give out 2 scholarships at that event. One is through the Lang family, and then one is through a couple other contributors. So those scholarships will be distributed then. And if you have young people, young women who are going off to college, please encourage them to apply. The applications are on our website. So I guess finally what I want to say is that it's really important that the village continue to think of all children in the community. And we appreciate the fact that all of you do that. And I know many of you do that personally as well. And it means so much. And it's the way that we've been able to continue. We have not raised our rates or changed our rates in the 21 years that I've been at Nyack Center. And it's in large part thanks to you and to our generous community. So that's it. Just wanted to say thank you and let you know what's up. And I don't know if anybody has any questions for me.
Any questions?
I guess the one question I have might not really be for you, Kim, but more for us. Of regards to the RFP and what we can do to sort of close the gap on that deficit that you're running to sort of better the children in this village. It's mostly what I wanted to know a little bit more about.
Definitely part of the budget, your budget plan.
Okay, that's my thoughts. Other than that, you always do great work, Kim. So.
Well, thanks. Thank you for everything. Also, I'd like to talk and meet with you about this outside refrigerator and see how I could assist.
Fabulous. I would love that.
Yeah, I'll stop by as well to take a look at the.
Great.
to see what-
Yeah, let me know if you want to come take a tour and we'll set it up and
Good,
you
I'll
can
do
have
that,
my full
yeah.
attention and we'll
Yeah,
make
you
sure
can
it's a
take a
day
full
that
tour. I did the tour
things aren't too wacky.
last year, it was great.
Just one question, when do you submit the budget to the village? Do you have a budget that you submit? How does that work?
So the Village of Nyack gives us the same amount every year and has for, I don't know, maybe 10 years, which is $125,000. That's for youth services.
And you have your own internal budget and you budget it, but the village has no,
Right, the Nyack Center's total budget is about 900,000.
okay,
So that's a portion of that. And then for camp, you all added some money last year. So last year we got $129,500 to run camp. Camp actually costs about
just-
$140,000.
It was 129 just for the camp we gave you?
$129,500 for camp.
Just for the camp?
Yep.
That's what, I thought it was,
About $250,000.
Wow.
what's about a quarter?
Between 125 for youth services and
And then-
125.
So-
so the total amount is quarter,
Yeah.
250.
Yeah, and I
Yes.
remember when we talked about that little extra, I guess the way I understood it was that we were giving an extra week of camp and then
Right.
we had spoken and that's when you had sort of.
Right, that was just an
Yeah.
idea someone had
Yeah.
and hadn't been discussed with us. Yeah.
The, do you?
Adding a week would be more than $5,000.
I'm always, and I'll ask you offline, I don't have to ask you this now. I have question for you, but I don't need to ask you in
Okay.
an open session. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you, Kim, thanks for everything you do. We're
Yeah,
happy to
keep up-
support it.
Absolutely.
I should-
Well, thank you all. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I would love to give you guys a tour, give you all a tour if anybody wants a tour. Just call in advance so we make sure that we're,
Are you there
available.
every day? In general, or what's the best time for you?
If you just give me a call, we can set up an appointment. Yeah. Because if you get there and I'm not there and we don't know you're coming, people will send you away because
They will.
we're a licensed care program for kids. And so we really, can't just have people popping in. Huh?
What's the number to call?
845-358-2600. It's on the cover sheet that I gave you of the program.
I have a mobile, I'll give you.
Okay.
Just ask me for
Yeah.
it. There.
Yeah.
So
I hope to see you guys Saturday. That's free. It's open to
Yes.
the community. Everybody's
We'll
welcome.
be there.
And, get your tickets soon for Women of Leadership and Vision. It usually sells out. So
All right,
Thank you.
thank you all.
appreciate it. All right, we have to adopt the minutes. Doesn't actually require a resolution, but we have to adopt the minutes.
Yeah, and
Do you have any questions about them?
Well, no, I thought we weren't, but I realized we have a quorum anyway.
We have a quorum, so we
Yeah,
can. we
yeah,
can-
and well,
Yeah,
I.
that's right, we have a quorum
Yeah,
even without her, she wasn't
Even
here.
with that, yeah.
Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes? So,
Second.
all in favor?
Abstain.
Board, yeah, we have an abstention.
From me.
From Donna because she wasn't here for that meeting. All right, action items, let's get to the resolutions. Resolution 2024-21 is to accept the audited voucher summary, which is contained in, I don't think it's in the packet, but it's in a separate document that you can download from the website under the meeting page. Can I get on the table?
Second.
Any questions or any comments?
Nope.
All in favor of adopting the audited voucher summary?
Aye.
Motion carries. Resolution 2024-22 to schedule a public hearing at 8 PM on February 29th, 2024 to consider the village's adoption of the ETPA. Can I get this
So
on the
moved.
table?
Second.
All right, discussion.
How are we doing that?
That's the,
How are we,
How's the situation?
well, we're administering a survey.
Right, that's what I mean, what's the status of it?
The status is that the deadline for responses is February 26th.
Okay,
So if you ask me then, I'll tell you how many.
we've got a couple back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a couple back. Any public comment on this issue? So, this is just to set the public hearing for the 29th, which we will have the results of the vacancy survey, and if the numbers come in with a vacancy rate 5% or below 5%, whatever the exact amount is, that we can declare a housing emergency and opt into the ETPA. Any other comment, question? All right, all in favor?
That'll go into effect right away.
It would go into effect. Yeah, it goes into effect right away as of that date. There's implementation issues that have to be worked out with the county, but it would go into effect right away.
doesn't it take 10 days notice or
It's a public hearing, you have to give 10 days advance.
Of the hearing.
of the hearing, but afterwards?
If we adopt it, it goes into effect immediately.
As Joe summarized, it as quickly as HCR can get it implemented is how long it takes.
It has to go to the state, right, and they
Right, Andy's more familiar with the nuts and bolts of HCR. Andy, maybe you could just very quickly summarize the nuts and bolts post opting into the ETPA.
So they have an outreach process. There's an administrative regime which they use to engage the landlords who are eligible to participate based on the village's determination. And they onboard them with a pile of paperwork, and they start to kind of evaluate their rent situation. The county rent guidelines board meets to determine rents, essentially. They do a look back and analysis of their own. And step by step, the state onboards them into their program and makes them essentially comply with the rent guidelines.
So it's the state and the county.
Yeah, right, the county board is a countywide,
Right, but they had a meeting here a couple of weeks ago.
right?
But the village has nothing to do with actual execution or implementation, correct?
That's right.
As I said, I think in either the last meeting or the meeting before that, when we implemented it last time, up until the point that we found the problem with the vacancy survey, and we had to then pull it out. There was a meeting here of the county board that does this to talk about it. And in that discussion, it became clear that one of the things that they do when they implement is they decide the time frame. And what they discussed quite in some detail was that there was a look back period, and they can adopt it with a look back period, which is to prevent people from knowing that the ETPA is coming into effect, doing a bunch of wholesale dramatic changes in the rent. So they might say, well, we're gonna do a look back up until, back to November when it was originally passed in NIC. And they might say that that's the baseline that we're gonna use it for the rent. So there is that, and there will be an opportunity. They will, if they follow the procedure they followed last time, they'll come here for that meeting. So you'll be able to come and petition them for whatever implementation policies that you'd like them to follow through. And thank you for being here. Thank you for asking the question. It's good to see you
I've been waiting.
again. I know.
Really time,
Yeah.
and my lease is still not signed, and that's why I'm asking.
We appreciate we appreciate that you've been,
Thank you.
it's been a long time trying to get this done. I think we have it on the table. We've discussed any further questions? All in favor of the resolution to set the public hearing?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 23, the adopting a negative declaration, well, that's not, adopting the garage capital project and accepting a $300,000 grant to build a truck wash bay and a salt storage shed. Can I get it on the table?
Motion.
Second.
All right, can we get some flavor, just a little bit of detail on this, Andy?
This was a grant application we did some time back, actually through Kenny Zabrowski's office. He was supportive of that. And
Nobody calls it Kenny.
we finally got the paperwork on it. And it's about, what is it, about a little over $100,000 for the salt shed, which is for storing the road salt so the rain doesn't hit it, so I'm conveniently locating that. And the other part of the money is for a truck wash bay, so you can clean trucks so they last longer, getting the salt and another grit off them, washing out the garbage trucks and things like that.
We've been talking about that truck wash bay for a
Yeah,
while.
we're very, very excited about it. I want to tell you.
That's a
we're
golden
very excited about it. It's really exciting. And this is paperwork related to that. It's unusual to have to do secret on a construction project on a site which is heavily disturbed already. But nonetheless, the funder requires that. And so Dennis and Bob Galvin and others and myself did the runaround to put together the secret documents.
Okay.
We have
Thank
them
all of
for
you
you.
for that.
So, there's a proposed negative declaration under secret because the site's already impacted. There's no endangered species there. It's not a waterway. It's a construction project on a disturbed site.
Let me just remind the board and those in the public who are not aware, a negative declaration under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SEQRA, is what actually means that there will be no, and I repeat, no potential for significant adverse environmental impact. So a negative declaration in this context is a good thing.
Okay. Thank you.
All
for
right,
that.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi. Although I just wanted to say that I went to the Andy and really down to the DPW, and he showed me all the various things that, it'll be a good, it'll be a good thing.
Yeah.
Definitely a good thing.
When it finally gets done, we should christen it.
Absolutely.
All right, I just,
Champagne at the side.
I just remember we have, this resolution will be quick. I just realized Officer Solo was here for the police report, so I want to make sure we didn't keep him here throughout everything. But the next resolution, 2424, is authorizing a permit for the use of the senior center for a meeting of the Nyack Community Garden. Can I get this on the table?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We all think this is a wonderful idea. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that passes. And I'm going to get the, let's get this because she's also here and she's waiting. Resolution 2425, to approve a permit application for street closures of North Broadway for 3 events by Maureen's Jazz Cellar, and Brianne from Maureen's Jazz Cellar is here. Can I get this on the table?
So moved.
Joe, and then it was a second by Donna. Discussion of this, why don't you come up so we can ask some questions about it? The first of these events has been subsidized by the grant that we approved last meeting. There was I think a $2,500 grant that you got for marketing of this event. That's for the one on Saturday, May 4th. There are 2 others on Saturday, August 10th, and then on Sunday, September 15th. I would point out, because there was some concern raised that I heard about, I didn't actually see anything about it, with regard to the events and whether it requires closure of the street up to High Avenue for the May 4th event, up to High Avenue for the August 10th event, and then just to New Street, which is right here on the Sunday event. That the first 2 events are both on Saturdays and they're both basically in the evening, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. They require 2-block closure, but at a time when it really shouldn't affect the merchants all that much. At 5 o'clock on a Saturday, it's not, it's toward the end of that day.
Mhm.
Well, I did talk to Andy about trying to make sure that the DPW doesn't start clearing the streets too early, that they don't disrupt the traffic pattern until, we get closer to the time period. Because that's one of the concerns that's been raised by some of the merchants, is that the street really closes a couple hours before that.
Right.
Otherwise, so that's the flavor. There's, remember, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. The one on Sunday is a little earlier, but the street closure is more narrow. Tell us a little bit about the events.
Yeah, this will be our second year doing
Right.
all three. And then wasn't to the last festival where we tried, I think it was just the Bluegrass where we tried the additional street, block closure. And I think it worked out well, and I think there's more opportunity to bring action up that way. Jazz Festival, I think we're okay being contained on this as to not disrupt, potential, shops being opened on a Sunday up there, or try not to disrupt them anyway. But yeah, free concert, bands all day, some, activities for kids, clown. We had a mechanical bull that, was a lot of fun that the kids were able to enjoy as well. So it's a family-friendly event, free for the community. Excited to say that we just opened up a, community arts fund with the Rockland Community Foundation under
Oh.
them, so we'll be umbrella, that just went through today, so we could
Congratulations.
open up, thank you, open up some opportunity for sponsorships for those that may want to help to keep this go, because it is a costly thing that comes from us directly, so we're just hoping for some support in that regard, well, which will be good, and the more we do that, the better they'll become, and so.
Yeah, there's a lot of positive feedback from last year and what you did.
Thank
I
you.
mean, there were a lot of people really happy about it. I don't know where I was, but I wasn't there, but I'm planning on seeing it for myself.
I hope you
this
could
year.
attend at least one of them
Yeah.
this year, this
Yep.
time around.
Yep.
And it is a lot of fun, we have the Talkways food truck involved. We have Tony was selling outside of his door. We have wine, beer, tent, all on the up and up with the SLA.
Thank you for clarifying.
You had the Grateful Dead, last year, right?
Yes, we
Yes.
did the Grateful Dead, then the Sunshine Daydream Bluegrass Festival, and this year we switched it. The Jazz Festival fell in July last year, and the demographic is a little bit of older. So we decided to go into, it was hot, and so we decided to push that into September this year. We'll see how that pans out. But we like to keep that during the day again, because the older folks can come out and enjoy some jazz in the afternoon and hopefully not be sweltering. It was a really hot day the last year, so.
I have a question.
Yeah.
About the DPW blocking the streets, I'd like to, and it's probably been discussed before, but just to make sure, about having portable bollards, purchased. They had them, one of the events had them, street fairs had them on, over here.
Yeah, and they were used for one of our events as well, the
Right.
black, those were
Those are from the county, right?
Yeah, we borrow those from the.
Homeland
from the
Security,
county.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know anything about it, but I've seen, YouTube videos on them. They really do stop,
Yeah.
big
Yeah,
trucks.
we like them too.
They're wonderful.
We like them because they
Can
don't
the
block
village-
the view.
Can the
Yeah.
village buy, can invest maybe as a capital,
It's a good item for budget discussion.
yeah, okay, but that's something that I think we should consider, because that'll save manpower, that'll overtime and.
And the on-site